CCV groups, we are calling you to action. On November 20th, CCV groups across the valley are going to unite to serve our city. And we want your group to be a part of the action. The For the Valley campaign is an opportunity as Jesus followers to celebrate what we're for rather than what we're against. It's an opportunity for us to serve our neighbors and love our city. And we want you as a group to begin thinking and planning how you're going to be a part of this movement. So before we begin our discussion on detours and the life of Joseph, we want your group to take a few minutes to identify some opportunities and start creating a plan for how you're going to serve together on Saturday, November 20th. Who could you serve? What needs are you aware of? Does your group have a shared passion or a mutual interest for education, law enforcement, or a specific group of people or demographic? Whatever it may be, we want you to begin discussing what you're for and how you're going to serve together on Saturday, November 20th. So take a few minutes to talk through these questions as you begin to organize and plan how your group is going to serve together.
Hey, this past weekend, we started a new series called Joseph, and we're really focusing on the detours of life, kind of leaning into his biography, looking at how, man, he would never have guessed the detours he was going to be taken into, being sold into slavery in Egypt, then being in Potiphar's house, and then being thrown into prison, and finally to the throne. Detours can be painful, but often they lead to something much better. And you think about some of the detours of our own lives. You never planned on a divorce, but here you are in the middle of a detour. It's taking you around where you didn't want to go. Or you never planned on, waiting 5 years to have kids, and then suddenly you find out you're starting to try to have kids and you can't. It's a detour. You never planned on the downturn. You never planned on a bankruptcy. You never planned on a child that has to go through rehab. Detours are painful. They can leave scars. But often, these kinds of detours can lead us to a better life than we ever imagined. Let me tell you about a detour I had in my own life. It was over a decade ago. I had agreed to take leadership of a missions organization. Once I got into the position, I realized this is not where I need to be. And to make a long story short, in the middle of that, I met a guy named Don Wilson, who happens to be the founder of CCV. Like, I literally walked up behind him at a gas station in Durango, Colorado, and said, "Hey, mister, can you spare $1?" He recognized my voice, turned around and said, "I don't have $1, but we need to have a conversation." And he offered me a job, to which I said, "No, there's no way I'm going to live in a desert." But my heart was already restless. I was ready for a change because of the painful place I was in. And over the next 6 months, God changed my heart so that not only did I want to live in the desert, now I want to die in a desert. One of the most painful seasons of my life, being put in a place where I feel like, man, this is not where I need to be, led to one of the greatest opportunities of my life, being right here with you right now. So here's a question. I think we'll start our conversation in the right way. What detours brought you to where you are today? Are you on a detour right now? This past weekend, Ashley asked a question. How would we think and act differently if we saw detours as mandatory or even helpful for reaching our intended destiny for what God has for our life? Now, to help you answer that question personally, I want to have you answer this question in the group right now. What was one of the greatest lessons you learned during a detour? I'm convinced that Joseph never would have been the leader God needed him to be without the detour he had to take. I want to be specific about that. If you look at Joseph early in his life, he has this dream and he just brags about the dream. You brothers of mine are going to bow down to me. So he wrestled with arrogance. Second, he wrestled with comparison. And that's why he tattled on his brothers. They're not doing what you told them to do. He lacked EQ, but he was pretty immature. He never imagined what his brothers would think if he said, yeah, you're going to bow down to me. Or even his mom and daddy said, you're going to bow down to me. It never crossed his mind that that might be offensive to other people. So he lacked IQ, he had pride, he wrestled with comparison, and he was entitled. He had the coat of many colors. Now, can you imagine a kid like that? Prideful, has comparison, lacks EQ, and is entitled. Can you imagine a kid like that being put in power? Well, we actually have several historical figures where that took place. Nero is an example, Roman emperor, the worst. You can think about pop stars today who their ego is fed, they're put in places of influence and leadership, and they always have a moral failure and an emotional breakdown. God wants Joseph to be a leader, not just over Israel, but internationally to save his people. That never would have happened. Joseph never would have left his own comfort zone had he not gone through this detour. He never could have sustained leadership at any level, let alone in a prison, in Potiphar's house, or internationally for Pharaoh, had he not been through the detour. Joseph never would have forgiven his brothers had he not been through the detour. The detour is a character development to put you in a place where you're able to receive what God has for you. So here's a question. Where might you have wound up without the detour that God took you on? I am convinced that Joseph never would have been the leader God needed him to be without the detour he had to take. Now, I want to be specific. When Joseph was a boy up to age 17, he has this dream that his brothers are going to bow down to him, even his parents are going to bow down to him. And the first thing he does is goes and brags about it. Hey, you guys are going to bow down to me. His pride was a death knell to any future leadership. He had to get rid of the pride. Second, he tattled on his brothers. That indicates he is comparing his life to theirs. I'm this way, they're that way. Comparison will kill your future leadership. So he had to deal with his pride. He had to deal with his comparison. Some of the most beautiful chapters in our lives won't have a title until much later, until after the detour, until after the desert experience. And one of the things we have to learn in the detour is how to embrace the unexpected, specifically the death of a dream. A lot of high school athletes think, well, I'm going to go to college, then I'm going to go play professional sports until they get an injury. Some of you think, yeah, I have this plan laid out for my life until you get a diagnosis from the doctor. Or you think this is my financial plan and your business is going great until there's a downturn in the economy. And suddenly, unexpectedly, sometimes through no fault of your own, sometimes it's mistakes we make, but sometimes through no fault of our own, we're put on a detour and we have to adjust our expectations. It doesn't mean that you don't have a dream anymore. If your dream dies, you have to have a different dream. But in order to have a different dream, we need to release the old dream and embrace the potential that the current detour has to offer. So, question for you. What dream do you need to release to embrace the potential of this current detour?